So I've given myself £20 to buy a film camera. I'm also going to make this much harder for myself and not use the internet, so that means no sorting by lowest on eBay. Also, it's got to be good. I don't want any old piece of crap, so that means none of these plastic panoramic cameras you can get for like a fart and a handshake. I want a well-known brand of camera with some sort of quality behind it. You know, like your Canons, your Pentaxes, your Leicas. Is that a spoiler alert? No, it isn't. And to complete this challenge, I've decided to go to this place called Battlesbridge. Firstly, because it sounds gnarly. And secondly, and probably more importantly, is there's a whole bunch of second-hand sellers in a small, concentrated area. So the first camera I found was a Miranda TL200. I probably should have just bought this thing straight off the rip and we could have had this video wrapped up in like 2 minutes. That way we could all get back to sulking in our own personal existential crisis or whatever it is that you get up to in your free time. But, and I'm sorry if you're a die-hard fan, the name Miranda doesn't really scream high-quality photographic equipment. I'm sure the earlier stuff is quite good, but I heard that this camera was made at a time where the Miranda name was owned by Dixons, who was sort of like a bargain electronics retailer. In fact, the best thing about this camera is that it forced me to discover the Dixons 1982 Christmas catalogue, and they will not be beaten on price. Free Cinefilm for life when you buy this Super 8 bundle. Are you mental? A free cabinet when you buy a Sharps VHS player. Telephones of the future. Look at these idiots watching a duck on their 14-inch Hitachi. This is how good the Miranda brand was. They're giving out their flash guns for nothing. A 5-pack of colour film for $3.99. That makes me sick. I'm not gonna lie, this video very nearly turned into like 15 minutes of just looking through Dixon's catalogues, but we've got a challenge to do, so let's get back to it. I got my hopes up when I saw this cabinet full of cameras, but they were quickly shattered when I noticed they were selling a Canon APS camera for the extortionate price of £35. Considering a fresh roll of APS film hasn't been made since 2011, you'd think they'd even struggle giving this thing away. They also had one of the aforementioned panorama cameras, but when I noticed that they were asking for 18 quid, I was almost sick up my arse. I came across a good few folding cameras, which I'm a huge fan of. These cameras in particular got me thinking that I should open up my own store. All you have to do is buy about £8 worth of cameras, make no effort in checking whether they work or not, and then right before you price them up, chug a big load of developing chemicals and pick whatever number comes to you in your toxic hallucinations. I'm just going to cover myself with a disclaimer here and say do not chug developing chemistry. We had a cheap Polaroid land camera which was looking particularly sad, practically begging me to save it from its inevitable fate of ending up in landfill somewhere, but unfortunately the film for this thing has long been extinct, making it as useless as your mum's gym membership. I've really got to stop with these mum jokes. There was this Kodak Tele Extralight 600 that caught my eye, but to be honest, I'm already disappointed in my photography as is. I think the fact that 110 film is a fraction of the size of 35mm would just push me over the edge. At one point I thought I was going to have to buy a Praktica from this pile of cameras, but as I started testing them, it became apparent that none of them worked and this was in fact some sort of analogue mass grave. Things were looking pretty bleak and I was starting to think I should have made this a £20 taxidermy challenge instead, because there was loads of that. But then it happened and I didn't get just one camera, no, I got 2. No guarantees if they work or not, so we're gonna have to find that out. So the first one has a good name, an excellent name. Olympus arguably made some of the best 35mm point and shoot cameras there were. This isn't really one of them. It's an AZ300 Super Zoom. Now you might be thinking that this is some sort of camcorder, but you're wrong again, idiot. I'm guessing the bulk and size of this thing is down to its cutting edge technology. Well, cutting edge at the time, now it's just old as shit. The viewfinder matches the lens focal length throughout the massive zoom range of 35mm all the way up to 105. That feature in particular, I'll never get to experience because the fucking thing's broken. It turns on, it seems to wind film, it takes a photo, but the zoom function just isn't working. And I don't know about you, but there's something about a camera named a Super Zoom with no zoom that sort of takes the piss. It's like if my name was Jack Massive. I can't actually believe I wrote that in the script. It did, however, come with a roll of film in the camera. Now, this is sort of a blessing and a curse when this happens. At first you think, yeah, cool, free film. But then the questions start rolling in. How long's it been in there? How long has it been expired? Should I pay to develop this? Should I shoot over it? When I put a battery in this camera and woke it up from its eternal slumber, it got mad confused and just started winding the film backwards and forwards. So I have no idea if any frames have been shot on this film. In the end, I just thought, screw it, I'll shoot over it. Worst case scenario is we'll have some nice double exposures of my mediocre photography and some previous owner's dick pics. The film turned out to be a roll of boots, universal, colour film. The tagline on the canister says, film for all occasions. Hopefully that also includes occasions where you're severely disappointed. It took me ages to get through this roll of film just because I was really reluctant to take this camera anywhere. Partly because it's the size of your head, and if I'm going to take something a bit bigger, I'd rather it was better with manual controls. If I want to shoot full auto, it makes way more sense to take a point and shoot which is much smaller than this thing. And secondly is because it's really hard to get enthusiastic about a camera that's not working as it should. To its credit, these things are actually quite good. If you don't mind lugging around something the size of a loaf of bread, they seem plenty sharp enough. Well, at their widest focal length anyway. Past that, I've got no idea because mine's shit its pants. Hopefully this second camera I bought works as it actually should. It's got a good name behind it. It's a Canon. I found this thing tucked away in the corner of the store behind a porcelain cat. Matey selling it had it up for a very ambitious £60. But when I asked him about it, he said that it's been sat there for so long I could have that and the Olympus for 20 quid. And would you believe this also had a roll of film in it? If you factor in the cost of film, like even expired film, I've got to be up, surely. £20, 2 cameras, 2 rolls of film. It's like a no-brainer. Fully manual? Yes. Fully mechanical? Yes. Criminally underrated? Quite possibly. At its core, it's just your garden variety SLR, but it's got a couple of extra features thrown in. For starters, it's got one of those flicky out, twisty latches for the film door. So if you close your eyes and think real hard, for a split second, you can feel like you're loading a Leica M6. Also, this is a QL model. QL stands for quick load, and although this does sound exactly like your nickname in bed, it actually refers to the way that you load the film. It's more or less idiot proof. You lay the film down in the general area of the take-up spool and the camera does the rest of the work for you. Also, for the princely sum of £20, this camera came with one of the niftiest of 50ists. A 1.8. From the research that I can do from ancient forum posts and my own research, it also seems you can fit the later FD lenses from cameras like the Canon A1, but don't quote me on that. This is all well and good, but does this thing actually work? Well, first I had to shoot through the roll of God knows what that was sat inside it. Now, usually in photography videos like this, all this B-roll will be accompanied by the photos themselves. But where are they? Look, I refuse to take the entire blame for this, so let me explain myself. After I'd shot the roll of whatever it was that was in it, I tried to wind the film back and the camera wasn't having any of it. The winder itself was stuck and it was sort of making a noise like a burlap sack full of cats winding on their own broken film cameras. But not wanting to be called a quitter, I did what you really shouldn't do in this situation. I sort of just forced it through. Me then stupidly thinking that this had solved the issue, proceeded to open up the film door and completely nuke the film. Totally roasted it. I honestly have no idea how long this film had been in there or able to get to a state where it became brittle enough to rip through the sprocket holes, but I was determined to save something from this roll. If not an image, then at least a valuable life lesson. Ow. Understandably, no film lab in their right mind would even touch this roll of film with a shitty stick, for fears that it would jam up their developing machines. So it looked like I was going to have to develop it myself. I didn't get any footage of that, but I did find this clip that accurately shows that whole experience.
I'm serious about this stuff.
As it turns out, this was all in vain because the roll was blank. I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to blame the previous owner. Maybe he opened it, or maybe the film was too expired, and maybe it's nothing to do with me, and I can say that, and there's no way of proving otherwise. Not wanting to be disheartened by this whole horrible situation, and wanting to actually find out if this thing worked or not, I busted a quick load of Kempmere 400. God bless you, Ilford, for everything you do. It's a shame this camera didn't come with some sort of zoom lens, because unless you scale right in, it's really hard to tell this is actually a photo of a duck's arse. The analogue photography gods must have been smiling upon me that day, because they chucked me a huge bone in the form of an abandoned truck. I will admit I got a little bit excited about this and then burnt through like 6 shots straight away. The amazing thing about this though isn't just how mediocre these shots are, but the fact that I threw caution to the wind and just decided to trust the internal light meter in this camera. Amazingly, it was working fine. Didn't even have to change the batteries and it did quite a good job. I then just flew over to Asia quickly just to fire off a couple of frames. No, I'm joking. This is a garden centre in Essex. But these photos do quite a good job of showing just what a good lens this 50mm is. I mean, a Canon nifty 50 is always a solid choice, but for the price of this thing, 20 quid, I think you'd be hard pushed to get a cleaner image for the same money. Especially when you think when this camera came out, Canon had only been knocking around for like, what, 30 years? I'm older than that and I can't make a lens for shit. Then to really test this guy out in true analog photography YouTube style, I found this nice abandoned building to shoot some frames in. Double points for me for finding one with asbestos, so you know, got that to look forward to. Worth it though, because I got this banger, which sort of looks like the title screen of The Last of Us Part 1. So did I succeed for £20 film camera challenge? I mean, it's not deal of the century, but I did end up with 2 cameras. Yeah, one of them is dangerously close to becoming a plastic brick, but the other one I was genuinely surprised at and will probably continue to use. Let me know if you like this challenge and we'll do some more. Next time we're going to get a £20 Leica.